the Arno Bay Club actually began in 1909, and my grandfather, Frank Pearce, was involved with the club after. There was a little club up at Boothby that folded, and they'd won the premiership in 1911. Boothby won the premiership against Arno Bay. But I think a couple of years later, the Boothby club folded, and those players, went to Arno. In the early days, every farm had lots of people doing manual work, picking stumps and trying to clean land up, because the whole district was scrubbed for a beginning, and it was pretty rugged in those days. And I think they really needed the sport, because they used to work, awful hours and had animals to bloody, no tractors, and it was working pretty bloody hard. But anyway, the Arno Bay Club was in its same side as it is now, and I played on it when I was 15, and the whole oval was just red hard clay, nothing growing on it, because it was salty ground, and just nothing grew. And I remember tackling a man, and I was only a kid, and my grip slipped off, and I fell on this hard clay on my left hip. And oh, the pain, and the erosion of it was so bad that there was a cricket pitch on it that actually stood out of the ground, because the soil away had been gradually washed and blown away over the years. It was a terrible oval. So they moved it half an oval towards inland, and then it was like that from 51 to 59, 8 years, and then they had to move it back again, because the new highway came through, which was going to go right through the middle of the oval we had. So it all went back to where it was, and they carted in a heap of drift sand, and we planted kikuyu grass on it, and we couldn't play there for the whole next season. And so the whole next 2 seasons we couldn't play on it, because the grass hadn't sort of made enough growth to make it hold together. So we went out and did a play and got on the oval we played on the ground in 59, and in 1960 we had to go out and play inland about 4 mile out at what they call the 5 Road Crossroad. We played a couple of 3 seasons out there with absolutely no facilities at all. There was not even there was a bit of a tin thing to have a piss. If you wanted to shit, you had to go in the scrub somewhere. It was that bad. No running water. And we played out there for 3 seasons, and moved back onto the new oval where we had club rooms in 1963.
Wow.
We were back in there.
Is that ground still out there?
Yeah, the ground is exactly the same place now as it was in 63. The club rooms originally were up near the road, and after we built new ones, we took them all down, and the best of block we got out of that went to the Dirt Circuit Club for their toilets. And I don't know whether you've been to Arno Bay yet. We've got a pretty good club room down there that we built ourselves with all of our own money. The government gave us nothing for that. It was all money we raised ourselves, and we built.
How did you raise the money?
And we built a lot of. In the harvest of '81, we had a lot of fellas donating grain. It was quite a good season, and a lot of fellas were putting in a few tons of grain. The next year was a drought. So there was nothing more forthcoming, but we were so close to getting it paid off that it was only open 6 months, and we had all our debt cleared. So then they started raising money then to put the squash courts on the back. Now you haven't been here to see that yet, have you? The squash courts?
I haven't. I didn't notice the squash courts. I have been there.
Well, the squash courts are part of the building. There's squash courts here that are really good, and you won't find a town as small as Arno Bay anywhere with squash courts like that.
I believe you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Arno Bay's only got a population of 200 to 300, and
there's not many towns that size with squash courts. Period.
No, there's no towns that size with squash courts.
So whose idea was it?
There was a couple of blokes. There were 3 blokes that really drove it. It was Neil Ramsey, Alan Sevier, and Ray Jacobs actually drove it, because they wanted to play squash. And in fact, I think Neil and Ray Jacobs are still involved with squash.
Did you want to talk about the squash club at all?
Yeah, tell me about how that was built.
Well, basically, there used to be old club rooms down the end, and then a group of them decided that we needed to renew them. So that was in, what, 78, 79, and they decided that they would join the community, like, that's why it's called the complex. Instead of just having a football club and whatever, we join up everyone in together. So a group of us had played squash and we were pretty keen on squash, and we thought, oh, we'd be cheeky and say, oh, we've got a squash club. So we rocked up at that meeting and said, oh, well, we've got a squash club, you're going to build things, you need to cater for us, you see. So anyway, when they built the building, because they didn't have the funds, to that middle bit there, this was stage 1, and the squash courts were to be stage 2. So we started raising money, and that's how we started the sale. There was an old guy had a farm, and he said, "Oh, you can take all my gear down to Arno and sell it." So we sold that on behalf of the squash club, and then we decided we'd start up the dirt circuit. So that's how the dirt circuit got started here. So we went out on the swamp out here. We did a track, and we ran, I think, about 5 of them before they took that over. But anyway, so I got to about 84 or something like that, and then the current president, he was sort of indicating, there's not going to be enough really interest. In the meantime, we'd been going to Whyalla in a bus or to Port Lincoln to play, and it really actually made me just about cry, because we used to go down there. They had 8 courts down there that were beautiful, and they let them all slide, you know. Anyway, and so then we decided, well, if we're ever going to do anything, I'll have to go president of the complex, you see. So I went president of the complex. Now during that stage, we'd raised $40,000, and so then I started to look into what it was going to cost to build squash courts and whatever. And when I got, because these are pretty unique, these have been built precast, and when I got asking around, like everywhere else they'd built the squash courts, they'd been built out of Besser brick, and then they'd been plastered, and forever. There was a cost of replastering, they couldn't keep them on, and they said, oh, if you're ever going to build them, they've got to be building precast, you see. So then there was only one bloke who'd do precast, and he was the one in Whyalla, and he had sort of semi-retired, and when I went to see him the first time, why would I want to even go down? So it took me nearly 6 months to actually talk him into coming down, and he come down the club and he seen the enthusiasm and that, and eventually he come down. But then we had to have the meeting, because I worked out it was going to be about 80 to 90,000, and we had to borrow $30,000, and I've told him you can have a meeting like AGM every year. No one turned up. That time we had a meeting. We had this packed. We had about 40 people there, and there was that many negative people in the town that got up and said, oh, you young people, you're going to ruin us. This was going to be a white elephant, you know, and never get used and whatever. But anyway, there was enough on the positive there, and we got through and borrowed the money. And
it has been used?
Oh, yeah.
It hadn't stopped being used?
No, it hadn't stopped. Because it's also because the club owns it.
Yeah.
And like juniors, you only have to pay $2 a night to play. And if you can get a sub for like $10. So that has been a big factor. That and the fact that the people have never let you put the teams in, they always even the teams up. Like Jared's on the thing now, but if they play, and like after a couple of matches, you can see one team's getting flogged, well, they'll rechange the players around, so try and keep it even, so everyone gets a really even competition, as opposed to you might go to some other clubs where they put individual teams in, and one will have a strong team and whatever, so. So yeah.
So it's been great.
And as far as our courts go, like the Squash SA, certain people have been there. that they're as good as anywhere you'll play in Australia.
Because we got the glass from England, and that's ramming the flooring. So that's the top grade flooring you can get at the time. So with the cast walls, that and the other thing is, because they're glass back like this, and I've had people come here and pass a comment, and because we've got the bar here, people play and then they stop and mingle like with each other, whereas other courts you go to, they got like an alleyway, you walk in or you walk up the top and play, but the bar's down the other side, so the ones that have played, they'll go down to the bar, they're out of it, and you got your few there. And they said that that's the other thing, like they love coming here because they play their partner and they would have a talk with him and they'll have a beer or a drink or whatever. So
There's very, very few squash courts around that you could actually sit this far back from a squash court and watch squash.
Great way.
Most courts have just, like Neil said, they've got the little alleyway behind them.
Great way.
This would be, it's very unique how this is set up.
Well, Arno Bay's a bit unique, really, isn't it? Anyway, thanks very much, Neil.
no, thank you.
It's been terrific. Fantastic. Good on you.
Perfect.
But when the clubhouse was built, I was responsible for the building of it. I never had any formal qualifications, except I'd done a bit of building on the farm for myself. And for 3 or 4 months, I used to set Gavin going on the farm with the work for the day and spend the rest of the day down there organising whatever workforce turned up. So farmers would rock up if they had some spare time. They'd go to Arno Bay and I'd have something for them to do. So we opened the place in August of 82. August 82 it was opened. And 2 years later we put the squash courts on, and they cost more than the original building cost completely. Yeah.
So they really wanted to play squash.
They did, yeah. and it's been good because, I mean, Monday nights are squash nights. I go past and there's always someone there.